Hello everyone. On this module, we're going to be talking about the Sharpe ratio, which is a very important ratio to have calculated by for asset and portfolios within finance. So the Sharpe ratio, it also has a lot of names, but also known as the Sharpe index or the Sharpe measure, or the reward to variability ratio, risk return ratio, or return to risk ratio. It measures the performance of an investment or asset compared to a risk-free asset after adjusting for its risk. I think when we go over the calculation, it's going to be more clear. But this is the definition, and it was developed by the Nobel winner William Sharpe in 1994, and is still widely used in finance as a measure of reward to variability for assets and for portfolios as well. So the calculation, it's basically the excess return of an asset over the risk-free asset divided by its standard deviation. So when you look here at ERI, we're looking at a return measure of an asset I. It can also be the return of a portfolio here, okay? You subtract the return of a risk-free asset, which is commonly we use a T-bills for that, for instance, and the maturity of that we can discuss later on, but it's usually a measure of T-bills, and divide that by the standard deviation of asset I or the standard deviation of the portfolio. Okay, so to demonstrate that, I have here this example in Excel. So I have here some data, Bayer and Amazon, geo mean and standard deviation, or return and standard deviation. And also we are giving you the risk-free asset return, 0.3%. And since it's a risk-free asset, it doesn't have any risk. So standard deviation equals to 0, okay? So the Sharpe ratio for Bayer will be the returns on Bayer minus the risk-free asset return divided by the standard deviation of Bayer, 0.17. Amazon, it will be returns on Amazon minus the risk-free asset return divided by standard deviation of Amazon. So basically what we are looking here, Amazon has a higher Sharpe ratio, and we can interpret that by saying that for each unit of risk that Amazon has, it returns 0.64 units of excess returns over the risk-free asset. Okay, see if it makes sense. So for each unit of risk, Amazon returns 0.64 excess returns over the risk-free asset. Okay, and so clearly here, Amazon has a greater reward to risk ratio, or Sharpe ratio, meaning that for each unit of return, Amazon provide more returns over the risk-free asset than Bayer. Okay. Another way to think on the Sharpe ratio is if you have a chart and you have a portfolio, or you draw a line between the risk-free asset and an asset. If you put them on an expect return or reward and volatility or standard deviation chart, if you think on this line, there will be the possibilities of a portfolio between 100% here on risk-free asset and 100% on Bayer here. If you think on that, the return to volatility measure, or Sharpe ratio, can be expressed by the difference in return. So Bayer's return minus the risk-free asset return divided by the standard deviation of Bayer. Okay, so you can also think, and if you know a little bit of geometry, it means that it's also the definition of slope. So the slope of this line between this asset and a risk-free asset, it's also a representation of the Sharpe ratio.